for the 10th anniversary of the Historic Urban Landscape recommendation. As you know, we have 3 technical sessions scheduled today and 3 technical sessions scheduled also on the 21st of June, for which we hope you will join us. Each of these sessions has different links, so we really hope that you are able to register and join us for each of them. And then on the 23rd, we will have the launch of the HUL call for action, the UNESCO HUL call for action. And the 24th is when the rapporteurs of each of these technical sessions will come together for a roundtable on the 24th, and on World Heritage Cities, on the implementation of HUL in World Heritage Cities. I would like to take this opportunity to request all of you to please keep your mic turned off when you are not speaking. And also, this would enable the sound to be better for everybody. And when you have any question, please feel free to enter it in the chat at any time. And then at the end of the discussion time, you can also raise your hand at any time, but the chair will only call on you during the time allotted for discussion at the end, when you can also enter your questions, your comments on the side. And I also invite all the panelists to respond in the chat as well, but of course we will try as much as possible to have it as an open discussion. So very quickly, before we launch into the presentations and I hand over to the chair, I want to recap a few points regarding the Historic Urban Landscape recommendation. Next, please. I think the most important point for us to keep in mind is that it was adopted by the Historic Urban Landscape recommendation was adopted by the General Conference in 2000, the UNESCO General Conference in 2011, and it is a soft law to be implemented by member states on a voluntary basis, and an additional tool to integrate policies and practices of conservation of the built environment into the wider goals of urban development. So it applies to all historic cities, not only to World Heritage Cities, and it advocates a landscape approach for identifying, conserving, and managing historic areas within broader contexts, considering the interrelationships between physical forms, natural features, and social and cultural values. So the emphasis is on recognizing the historic center ensemble as an intricate part of a larger setting of its geographical, historical, social, cultural context. So it advocates looking at historic urban areas as composed of layers of history, economic, social, spatial relationships between the built heritage, natural environment, and the local communities. Next, please. So when we look at the Historic Urban Landscape recommendation, I just want to touch very briefly here on the Fukuoka outcomes, which was from an expert meeting in Fukuoka when there were 8 different points or dimensions of implementing the HUL approach that was developed to better identify urban attributes, and a basic framework for urban heritage management that was developed. You can find this on our website. Next, please. Just to wrap up, I want to mention 2 points, which is related to the different activities that we are carrying out at the World Heritage Center, the World Heritage Cities Dialogue. The World Heritage Cities program has more than 313 cities in the program, and the theoretical and methodological efforts are made through the Historic Urban Landscape recommendation activities. The Urban Notebooks is, I hope everybody here is subscribed to Urban Notebooks, which is our monthly e-newsletter. And the City Lab is an innovative global collaborative workshop for co-creation of strategies and solutions related to urban heritage management, and the World Heritage City Dialogues, which is a platform for the site managers and focal points to meet and exchange. And Canopy which is the World Heritage Canopy, is a platform for innovative practices and strategies for heritage-based solutions for sustainable futures. With that, I want to stop here. Thank you very much again for joining us. And I want to hand over now to our very eminent chair for this session, Mr. Soibu Varisu, who is the Executive Director of the African World Heritage Fund. A very warm welcome to you. I also want to take this opportunity to introduce our rapporteur, Ms. Ishanlosen Odiwawa, who is Vice President of ICOMOS Nigeria and a very important conservation expert. Thank you very much for being with us, and we look forward to the session today. Over to you, Mr. Varisu.
Well, thank you very much, Jyoti. I think it's our biggest honor. I don't know if I should speak French or English, but I'll be shifting as we go. Because we have a question.
Nous avons la traduction. So I might just take this opportunity to remind everyone to please choose the language of your preference. Vous pouvez choisir la langue.
Votre langue préférée?
Oui.
Yes, pour suivre.
Yeah, you can choose language. You have interpretation. You can click on the button on the bottom of your screen to choose the language you'd like to use.
Big honor for me to be part of this meeting and be given the opportunity to hear the session. Can we please mute our mic? The mic is open. Okay, thank you. I would really like to thank you, Jyoti, and the World Heritage Center for giving me this opportunity. And I would also like to recognize the presence and dedication of Ishanlosen Odiwawa, who has been quite supportive in what we've been doing in the region, and also greet all the participants and colleagues who are here. Of course, the technical team and everybody who have been working hard behind the scene, and that we don't always see. That having been said, I think this is quite a prominent meeting because we are talking of issues that are touching more and more everyone in the world, cities. And when we say cities, is the future of the world where everybody is going towards. Even rural areas are being more and more urbanized nowadays. So we are to really talk about the subject that will be more emphasized in the upcoming days, but also next year when we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the program. This session is about how the Historic City Landscape Program has been implemented in the Africa region. We will be organized through a short introduction that I will make, and then we'll give a chance for case studies to provide their experience, not necessarily best practices, not necessarily inspiring, but various experiences before we get into discussion. And then we'll close the session through a brief that will be provided by our rapporteur, Dr. Odiwawa, in this meeting. That having been said, next please. Next slide, please. Thank you. I think there is something which is key in the historical landscape approach, is that we are, as I said, we are talking of the management of heritage resources, what we link into World Heritage, but and I put it in red, in a quite a dynamic and constantly changing environment. You cannot stop the development of a city. And this is even true, very, very much true in the African context, where you have a vibrant development of cities, including those one that are inscribed on the World Heritage List. We have currently 14 African sites that have been inscribed as cities on the World Heritage List, and each of them actually is a quite interesting case study. But I think from what I've seen so far, the fact that the historic urban landscape approach has been using a quite integrated approach, holistic approach. It's touching to not only the development of housing, but also touching to, the how to accommodate places, how to design places, how also to offer better conditions for livelihood of population. So, and without neglecting the conservation aspects and the keeping of authenticity that are all related or integrated, that are all related to heritage sites. So that combination of angles, of views, of methodology is one thing that is extremely interesting in the historic urban landscape approach. And this is something that I would really like to highlight in addition to the fact that we are talking here of a place that is not fixed, but has been evolving over time. Next, please. Next slide, please. But when you look at the whole, what we have currently as, next slide, please. Thank you. So when you look at what the way that the organization I'm working for, which is the African Heritage Fund, has been interacting with the program to date, we've been working basically through a number of capacity building program, which is one key priority area to see how skills can be developed to improve the management, let's say the holistic undertaking. I will not talk of management of a city, of cities. And for instance, we have a number of interaction with Timbuktu in Mali, which is has been quite interesting through, for instance, how to empower, local masons to increase their skill and deal with the long-term conservation and community involvement by having a number of multi-layer, skill development approach. You also have at another level how to bring African cities on the World Heritage List. And one side that we worked quite closely with is, for instance, Grand Bassam, but you have others as well to see how skill can be developed within our colleagues of Côte d'Ivoire to develop nomination dossier and bring them that to the World Heritage List. So you have a number of layers that we work on, and I think these are also critical issues. When you are talking of historic urban landscape, how to bring more diversity, more variety on the World Heritage List, but also how to ensure that sustainable means are being used to guarantee a better livelihood at those places. Next, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Prochaine diapo, s'il vous plaît. Je crois qu'on a raté une diapo. Peut-être qu'il faudra retourner un tout petit peu en arrière.
I think we missed a slide. We should go back before we go back to that one.
Yes, again. Reculer, reculer, reculer. Reculer encore.
One slide before that, please. We missed a slide.
When we look at what has been going on at global level, you see that there's from the distribution of the World Heritage List, there's an obvious imbalance globally. And it's quite interesting that that imbalance also reflects on the cities that are inscribed on the World Heritage List, because I was quite interested to see that it's only 4% from the region we are talking of, which is on the cities that are part of the 177 cities that one can see as World Heritage cities on the World Heritage List. But with 14 from Africa, this means 4%. Hence, once again, it's talking to how, let's say, the diversity of African cities can better be reflected on the World Heritage List. Next, please. Prochaine diapo, s'il vous plaît. Maintenant, la prochaine. Now when you look at the 14 African cities on the World Heritage List, there are a number of issues that have been brought up over time, but most importantly, in the last, let's say, 4 years. And those include, and this is something that maybe I would like that we could emphasize a little bit in the interactions, the issues around management systems and management plan. This is something that is, even sometimes you don't have the management system in place, but most of the time they are not implemented accordingly. Another issue is the whole issue of housing, and housing is touching to the livelihood. Housing with also all what goes with that in terms of, keeping coherence with the designs, but also providing the required conditions for people who are living there to feel at home. There are other issues, for instance, the solid waste management. And I'm sure that our colleagues from Zanzibar, but also, which will not be discussed here, but also from Jene, will probably tell us something about how the waste management is being addressed at that city. And you have many other issues like transportation at well in terms of infrastructure, to allow movement, but also in terms of cars and all the mobility system within those cities is also a challenging issue, where sometimes you have quite tiny space to move around, and there's no way that you can change because of the nature of the list under which they've been inscribed. And then you have a lot of other issues, like for issues around the climate change, the water management, climate change impact, but also, why not, the whole insecurity issue and conflicts issue that have been now affecting some of those cities. We can give the example of, when I'm talking of conflict, is armed conflict, but it's also more, silent conflict, if I can say, within family, or about the management of the property. About armed conflict, we have the case of Mali, where cities like Timbuktu, Jene, and others are being heavily affected by the tension situation which are in those countries. So you have a number of issues that unfortunately sometimes lead to destruction, but also sometimes lead to poor management of those places. Next diapo, s'il vous plaît. However, it's not only in terms of challenge. There are a number, a series of work programs that are being put in place, and I must here acknowledge the work that municipalities, authorities have been doing, and also governments, to ensure that cities are being kept the way we would them to be kept. And there are also a program that we've been discussing in Africa about what I can call the modern heritage of Africa, which is something quite new. It's a program in development. It's structured around a number of workshops and engagement, and with the aim to reflect on the experiences that are being going on the continent, especially when it comes to modern heritage. Of course, modern heritage doesn't mean necessarily cities, but it's touching to urban environment. And the aim of this program is to interrogate what modern means for Africa, what can, in African context, modern mean, and then what fresh air can be brought from this region to the World Heritage List. A number of activities have already been implemented, and some are still coming. The closest is the symposium that the University of Cape Town is organizing in September on that thematic, with the idea to refresh what can be said. And then I think I have to move to the last slide so that I could give the floor to our colleagues coming from the ground to interrogate us. Please, the next prochaine diapo, s'il vous plaît.
Next slide, please. I think it is the second to last.
Some topics, in addition to what I said before, that I would suggest that our case studies champions could also address is the whole, when we are talking of cities and taking for what I just said before, the adaptation trend is something that we really like to see. How are populations and management adapting to the changing environment in terms of population development priorities? When we know that World Heritage is also about the limited, change over time. That's one thing that I would like to hear maybe more about during the presentation, the discussion. You also have the whole issue of sustainable cities that are able to provide some measurement mechanism about improved livelihood. How are we measuring improved livelihood when at the same time not betraying, the conservation aspect linked to the protection of World Heritage? But also, we would like to hear more about the diversity of experience based on local context, which is why we are bringing the case studies on board. And these are things that can further be reflected on also during the plenary discussion. And then the last slides. Next slide. We'll be talking here of 4 case studies. Grand Bassam, of course, all towns of Guinea, which is there. I will not go into detail, but the all towns of Guinea will address issues around new development and neighborhood development. The historic town of Grand Bassam will talk to us about also some development that are happening, and then we'll be talking also of 2 other case studies, Saint Louis and Città de Vella. So without further delay, I will call, and let me shift to French now. Je voudrais demander à notre collègue.
I would like to give the floor to our colleague from Grand Bassam. Could you present in 5 to 10 minutes? You have the floor. Oh, okay, colleague. Côte d'Ivoire, you have the floor for the city of Grand Bassam for sustainable development in Côte d'Ivoire.
Do we have est-ce qu'il y a un person de présentation pour faire des présentations de Grand Bassam, s'il vous plaît?
Oui, Jyoti, c'est Alva. Je pense qu'ils ont un problème avec son...
This is Helva. I think there is a problem with the audio line and the microphone, so maybe we can move on to the next presentation, and then we'll see whether we can reactivate the microphone. Okay, so we'll ask our colleague from St. Louis to introduce his case in 7 to 8 minutes. It's a real pleasure for me to take part in this forum. It's a beautiful initiative to share experiences on the management of historic heritage cities, and I'm so happy to be part of this call for case studies. Here is a brief presentation of St. Louis City. This is a former capital city of the French colonial empire. It's located 270 kilometers from Dakar, the capital city. It was founded, the city of St. Louis, in 1659. The population is about 300,000 inhabitants, distributed in 3 main entities. You first have the strip of land of the Barbary, the Soar neighborhood, and the island proper. So you see, you have the arms of the Senegal River right here, delimiting the various neighborhoods. This is the oldest city built by the French in Africa, and the history of St. Louis matches that of colonization, and the bulk of the built heritage on the island is a legacy of the colonization, French colonization times. So let's look at the criteria and attributes on the basis of which St. Louis was listed as a World Heritage City. So the island of St. Louis owes its listing on the World Heritage List thanks to its remarkable and outstanding cultural and urban heritage. Also, its location on the delta makes it an outstanding site. It's often called the African Venice. The listing of St. Louis also applies to the buffer zones. The buffer zone being mainly the coastline and the coast road, the Soar Coast Road, north and south. The island of St. Louis has a surface area of 72 hectares. It's been on the list of the World Heritage since December 2000. Now let's review the difficulties and opportunities. A strong point is that we do have appropriate tools to enhance the cultural heritage and our urban heritage. A decree was enforced in 2008, and along with the setting up of the preservation committee, gathering all the stakeholders involved in the conservation of our heritage. There was also a ministerial council devoted to the conservation of the World Heritage in St. Louis with the commitment of NGOs, associations. Now, there are weaknesses as well, among which there were some unfortunate interventions on some buildings regarding private rehabilitation projects. And it was not always done correctly. And also, there is a lot of water coming up, you know, the rise of capillary water is a problem. And there were several alarms, and the World Heritage Committee in its 216 session threatened to place St. Louis on the list of global heritage that is endangered if measures were not taken. Today, the main challenge for us and the main stake is to ensure the preservation and conservation of this world heritage. So the context and the factors we're dealing with regarding the context, we have a tourism program, but alongside a new paradigm to preserve the city, but also to re-dynamize tourism. So we're really working with this program on enhancing our cultural, urban, historic, and natural heritage around St. Louis. This program meets the needs for greater investment for economic development. We want to enhance the urban landscape, requalify the public heritage and public spaces. We want to engage in the rehabilitation of most architectural buildings. We want to do capacity building And also we want to watch over the good health of the population by resolving those problems. We want a resilient population. And the touristic development program with its various components is a beautiful initiative which eventually will enable St. Louis City to be more sustainable and more resilient. The air will be better. We will manage the waste in a more sustainable fashion, preserving the environment. We'll organize green spaces for the population. So this program aims at economic development, both commercial and touristic, but also we want to include the younger population in managing this built heritage. Now, the program for the touristic development in St. Louis aims at sustainable tourism through the enhancement of this historic urban heritage. I'm sorry, sir, but could you please finish within 2 minutes? All right, then, well, to wind up, let me say simply that among the expected results, we're looking at the rebuilding of a main street, the rehabilitation of St. Louis Cathedral. We want to change the planning of some streets, of the banks, of the artisanal, crafts village. So many deliverables are expected that we are working on. And please note that when it comes to sustainable development, the tourism development program with the various components I mentioned is a beautiful initiative which eventually will enable the city of St. Louis to be more resilient and more sustainable. The air the people breathe will be better, and there will be better infrastructures and facilities. Thanks to that program, the World Heritage Committee had to pay tribute to the huge efforts deployed by the party state. Thank you so much. Many thanks. I'm sorry for putting pressure on you, but well done. You managed to keep your presentation within 8 minutes. Okay, the keywords: sustainable city, development of tourism, as well as resilience. Thank you so much, dear colleague. Now, before I hand over to our colleague from Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, have they solved their technical glitch, Grand Bassam?
Apparemment, ils n'ont toujours pas le son. Comme ils n'ont pas le son, peut-être que nous allons passer à Jenny. Jenny, est-ce que Jenny est en ligne?
Do we have our friends from Jenny, Mali? Are you there with us?
Hello, Jenny.
Our friends from Jenny? Are you there? The historic city of the ancient city of Jenny, Old Town. Okay, our friends from Grand Bassam, Côte d'Ivoire are not with us, neither are our friends from Mali. So let's switch to the fourth case study, the Ciudad de Bella. Oh, yes, I'm online. Okay, those are. Good morning to all. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to share our experience in terms of cultural entrepreneurship. So I'll go through my presentation with you. Can you see my slides? The speaker asks. Yes, your slides are being shared. We can see them on the screen. Right. Is it going all right there? And now please turn your microphone
Il
on.
y a un souci avec son micro.
Okay,
Et
apparently
c'est
we
pas le
have a little
micro
problem
du
with
kit
the
main libre
microphone.
qui est utilisé, c'est le micro de
It's not the
l'ordinateur.
freehand kit, it's
Et
the
donc, il faudrait qu'il sélectionne son bon
microphone of
micro
the
parce que sinon, on a
computer.
beaucoup d'écho
So
et
the
les
speaker
internautes ne savent pas
has
s'ils vont
to
pouvoir interpréter.
choose the right
C'est le technicien,
microphone,
désolé
otherwise
de
it
avoir
creates
intervenu.
lots of echo and it's difficult to hear. Thank you. Could you please use your computer microphone?
Non,
All
c'est le
right, I
contraire.
will do
C'est
that.
son
Or
micro
it's the other way
du
around,
casque.
actually. You should use the microphone of your headset microphone. Oh, unfortunately, I only have the microphone computer on or available. I was trying to see that with the technicians.
Vous sélectionnez les micros adéquats dans l'extrémité gauche.
You have to click on the right microphone, bottom left on your screen, you have a microphone and an arrow. Click on the arrow and you can choose your freehand kit or whatever, the name of your headset. But I can hear you very well.
Le problème, c'est pas l'écoute, monsieur. Le
The
problème, c'est les micros.
problem is
Bon,
not
allez-y, mais
for
je veux
us
dire,
to
c'est pas
listen
si
to
les
you.
interprètes
It's
s'arrêtent.
because the sound is pretty bad like that. You have lots of echo.
Non, ça va pas, mais bon.
Is it all right
OK,
now? No,
il
it's
faut y
not
aller.
so good, really. Okay, you get started, and if we have a problem, the technicians will let us know. What is the problem now?
Le problème, c'est que le son qui
The
est capté
Vous
de
problem
pouvez
is
l'ordinateur,
commencer,
that the sound
Monsieur,
is
Monsieur
not so
Ramos.
good.
Vous pouvez
Ok.
commencer
Mr.
vraiment
Ramos, you can
parce
get
que
started
on perd le temps.
because we're wasting time, actually. So in the interest of time, please, would you start?
Non, vous pouvez faire votre présentation, Monsieur Claudio.
Okay, go ahead and with your presentation, sir. All right.
Je vais commencer pour faire une brève présentation sur les contextualisations géographiques de Ciudad Verde.
Okay, I'll start with the geographical location. Ciudad Bella is an old city, as the name indicates. It's located in the south part of the Santiago Island, 12 kilometers away from Praia. It has about 1,300 inhabitants over a surface area of 200 hectares, the population being exactly 1,214 dwellers. The Cabo Verde Islands were discovered between 1460 and 1462 by navigators working for the Portuguese crown. Before the Portuguese got there to Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, the islands were uninhabited. So human settlement, human occupation or settlement started in 1462, precisely on the Santiago Island in Ribeira Grande, because the natural conditions were the best. There was a valley with a few rivers, the ships could anchor. It was more hospitable than other parts of the island. This is the listed area. You have the protected area, the built area, the new zone, and the buffer zone as well on this map. The site was listed on the World Heritage List mainly on the basis of three criteria. Criterion 2, beautiful sea landscape, seascape rather, agricultural and urban scapes show its key role in international trade. It's when European colonial domination started. It was at the very beginning of the Atlantic slave trade. Then criterion 3, urban site, the sea, that's a testimony of the origins and developments of the Atlantic trade during nearly 3 centuries. And criterion 6, Ribera Grande was really the place where the first mixed Creole society was born, came about. So the Cidade Vella was listed only in 2009 on the basis again of criteria 2, 3, and 6 during the 33rd session of the Global Heritage panel in Seville. So it was really at the crossroads of European conquest. It was the first intercontinental platform in the slave trade between Africa, Europe, and the Americas. So it was a prefiguration of cross-ocean and multi-continental trade and exchanges. It was a step in the globalization of relationships and the Creole culture, also tropical agriculture. Now, the strong points and the weaknesses, it's a World Heritage site. We're near the capital city, easy access, the wealth of the built heritage. But among the challenges, there is more and more tourism pressure on the island. Also, it's difficult to adopt new technologies to promote this World Heritage. We should diversify the tourism offer. The local NGOs are poorly organized. There is a low level of schooling, and all the stakeholders are not properly coordinated. Many young people leave the city. We sell too much foreign-made craftsmen, and there is inflation. But through this initiative, we want to promote cultural entrepreneurship and beef up economic activities with local entrepreneurs. We want to create a hallmark, a certification stamp for our products. Also, we want to make it possible for people to identify trading opportunities in relation to cultural and heritage tourism. So we involved the local populations. There was a high rate of unemployment, but we want to beef up and diversify the offer in tourism. As I said, the unemployment rate is quite high. So we would like to make for greater trading and commercial opportunities through the reinforcement and diversification of our tourism offer. Because we are poorly using our resources, we missed our target. We have to get it more together and target our projects better. We have also to do everything to empower the local families, particularly women. Also, there is one industrial activity, which is the extraction of marine aggregates. Many women do it, but it's bad for their health. We want to do capacity building. We want to select the right type of companies that are best adapted to the site. We want to participate in the drafting of projects, tie up with financial institutions. The direct recipients will be the local communities, as well as the communities living in the municipality of Cidade Bella. So lack of funds was a hindrance. Also, the slow adoption of new technology was another hindrance. Contribution to sustainable development. We follow the recommendation on the preservation of the landscape and townscape. We want to contribute to the development of this human society. We want to enhance and showcase the value of the local products as well. I'm sorry for the little technical glitches and the delay and the poor internet connection, but I hope
thank
you
very
were
much.
able to hear me.
Yes, of course, we hear you. I was listening to the English translation. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Claudio. Vous avez pu tenir dans les 8
Thank
minutes.
you so much. You actually did your presentation in 8 minutes.
Yeah, bravo.
So congratulations to you. And what we can see in your presentation, we are going to wait to see if we can have the presentation from Jeme. Et nous allons donc voir comment nous pouvons
tourism development and even technology mastering and a lot of things that are there. But the most important is that you want to promote cultural entrepreneurship to create sustainability. Okay, now if Côte d'Ivoire is here, I can see Mr. Jaco. She's there. I hope he has the sound and he can take the floor to give us in 8 minutes, if possible, a brief about his presentation. Thank you very much. You have the floor, Mr. Jaco. Grand Bassam.
Grand Bassam. It seems that there are still issues with sound. So maybe we could try one last time to see if Jenny is available. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Jaco. You have the floor. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Varisu. I'm going to make a presentation on the city of Grand Bassam, and I'm going to talk about the challenge of urban development in Côte d'Ivoire. So first, I'd like to say that the city was included on June 29th, 2012, during the 36th session of the Commission on criteria 3 and 4. The city is a source of pride for the local community and for Côte d'Ivoire as a whole. It has an interest for tourist and economic activities, but there are also the importance of the UNESCO label that we would like to emphasize. So I'd like to present our plan. So first, I'm going to present the historic city. Then I will talk about the challenges for the sustainable management of the city. Then I will talk about the city as a source of development of economic and tourist activities. And then I will talk about how the city can improve resilience in the face of natural disasters. So first, the city. Here you can see the location of the city. It is in West Africa. So in Côte d'Ivoire, the city is located in the southeast of Côte d'Ivoire, and the historic site is on a sandspit between the ocean and the lagoon. So here you have the area of the city. So there's the protected area in red, and there's the bridge zone And you can see how the site is organized. There are 4 neighborhoods: the residential area in the west, then the administrative area, the commercial area, and the Enzima village. And here you can see why the city was included on the list. So it was included on June 29th, 2012. Based on criteria 3 and 4, there are several values. The architectural value that was emphasized and the historic value. Then there is the value coming from the landscape. Here you have a couple of pictures. And then there is the cultural value, the testimony of the Enzima culture. So what is the contribution of the city for sustainable urban development in Côte d'Ivoire? I'd like to talk about the challenges and the opportunities of sustainable management. There are several challenges for the city of Grand-Bassam. It is important to find a balance for the city so it can be livable, but historic sites must also be protected. However, it is important to take into account the social and economic needs of the population. And so it is important to strengthen jurisdictional and institutional frameworks and to have participatory management. So first, I'd like to talk about the legal framework. Since 2020, the Ministry of Culture has set up a management plan. It is the compass that must guide our actions. However, this plan was obsolete, and with UNESCO, we have updated the management plan this year. One of the goals is to strengthen the financial autonomy of the population so that all can work in good conditions. And we know that capacity building and financial resources are essential for the protection of heritage. Moreover, the country of Côte d'Ivoire had decided to review the 1987 law to take into account other types of heritage, intangible heritage, for instance. The speaker is muted. The speaker is on mute. The interpretation cannot continue. Mr. Jacko, we cannot hear you. Your mic is off. Could you put your mic on, please? So we have been able to raise awareness in the population around the historic sites. Now I'd like to talk about participatory management. The state has put into place an executive secretariat called the House of Historic Heritage, and there is also a land tenure commission that supports the Management Institute in the decision process. And so you can see that we have a sort of participatory democracy to have a good management of the site, and so that future generations will be to enjoy this historic site. However, there still needs more financial supports for some of the programs. Now I'd like to talk about the Grand-Bassam city as a source of economic activity. The UNESCO label has turned the city into a world-class tourist destination. And this is an opportunity for the development of the cultural site through the development of infrastructure and tourist activities. So this is a major challenge because global tourists are demanding. However, this cultural site has a very high value and can be a source of economic activity. And so we need to develop the tourism potential of festivals that are organized every year. The goal being to attract many tourists who would like to know more about local culture, know-how, and craft. Could you conclude your presentation, please? So now to the conclusion. But before I conclude, I think it is important to say that the traditional crisis management system has been able to save the city and protect the city. So the Grand Bassam city can be a lever for sustainable urban development. It might be a source of funding for socioeconomic and cultural infrastructure. It can also contribute to environmental sustainability. This is why we commend the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the UNESCO recommendation on historic urban landscape. It will help support the implementation of policies for socioeconomic and cultural development, which will strengthen international solidarity and will help us to protect ourselves from the destruction of cultural heritage and protect ourselves from catastrophes. Thank you for your attention. Thank you so much. My apologies for putting so much pressure on you. But we have seen that Grand Bassam is a vibrant city, and it is a city which, through its management plan, will be able to develop. It opens various perspectives for development. It will turn the city into a tourist destination while improving the resilience of the population and creating funding for sustainable development. So thank you so much. And since Jenny is not with us, I'd like to know, Jenny is now here. So in that case, could you make your presentation in 5 minutes, please? You have the floor. So we won't have a lot of time for discussion, but good morning, everyone. My apologies for the delay. I was experiencing network issues in the area. We have many issues with internet connection. I am part of the cultural management of Djenné, and I manage the old cities of Djenné, which has been included in the World Heritage List in '88. Djenné is located in Mali, in the internal delta of Niger. It covers 35,000 square meters. It is part of the Mopti region, where there are two rivers, Niger and Bani. So this city has been founded around 800 AC. Djenné is a major city in the area, and as I said, this site is included on the World Heritage List based on criteria 3 and 4. Djenné, Habankintobo, Tobomba, and Kanyan are part of the urban fabric of Djenné, So this was a short presentation of the city. The old urban fabric has an area of 48 hectares and is experiencing many challenges. The main one has to do with the construction materials that are used. As you know, everything was built out of earth and mud, but today we're using other types of material, and this hinders the conservation of the site in the city. And so we have created a project because Gene could be seen as a city because regularly everything is flooded. And so we have decided to look at the whole area. So the city, archaeological sites. It is also important to note that there is a great deal of population growth, and the site is too small to contain this growth. And this is why we have decided to create a new neighborhood so that the quote-unquote excess population can go to this new neighborhood. So this neighborhood has already been created, and the City Hall has made available to the population various units. And in this project, everything will be paid on an installment plan. And so here you have a plan to create units in this new neighborhood, and I can give this to UNESCO if need be. Here you have some monuments. Inhabitants of the city now want to live as if they were in a big city, and this is why they're building solid constructions. This is something that is forbidden because all the houses built must be made using the older techniques. However, the population want to change its way of doing things. However, with our new projects, we will allow the population to build solid buildings outside of the old neighborhoods. So the project is managed by the City Hall, by the cultural mission of Jeme. There is a wide support for this plan, which will make it possible to have more infrastructure so that the city has offers the same opportunity to its population as other cities. So all the people who will still try to build solid buildings will be punished, and we will try to have less speculation when it comes to housing. The poorest people will have access to housing, and people who move to Jene, because many people, because of terrorism, are moving to Jeme, and so we will be able to offer them houses and a healthy environment. Could you please conclude? Yes. There is still many challenges. However, we think that through this project, the old cities of Jene will have enough protection. I don't have enough time, so we'll stop here. Thank you so much for your support in this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, many apologies for putting pressure on you. Well, before I hand over to the coordination team, So in order to get a first feedback from the participants, this is a very interesting experience. It shows that faced with urban pressure, an original solution was found, which consists in creating a new neighborhood while complying with the regulations and putting in place a regulating plan. Now, I will hand over to the coordination team members to conduct the interactive poll. And then we'll have some interaction.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Varisu, and also many, many thanks to the presentations. We will do a very quick poll to engage everybody who is present in the room. I will hand it over to Alba to do this, and then we will hand the mic back to Mr. Varisu to carry out help us moderate the discussion in the room. Alba, please.
Yes, hello everyone. It's nice to have you here. So we are going to conduct this online poll to share some questions with you and warm up the debate. So to do so, you should go to this web page that it's written on the screen, slido.com. I'm going to write it on the chat as well, and you can access the poll there. I'm going to be reading out loud each of the questions, and when you input the answers, they will appear here on the screen. The answers are anonymous, but we will all be able to see what the people have answered and what the opinions are. So maybe I'll give you a couple of seconds so that you can all connect to the poll. If you access the website, slido.com, you will have a box at the top where you have to type the name of the poll. The name would be HUL2, as you can see on the screen right now. Okay, I see that some people are answering already. I'm going to read out loud the first question. So it's both in French and in English. So it would be, quels sont vos principaux enseignements de présentation et des études de cas? Or what are your main takeaways from today's presentations and case studies? So we can see some answers already. Talking about vulnerabilities to natural disasters, man-made conflict, issues of giving a function to the city beyond tourism, or new planning in a historic context, even beyond the World Heritage Site boundaries. Then another answer says connection, nature with the historical town. Okay, I think we're going to pass to the next one because we don't have much time. So the second one would be, d'après votre expérience et les présentations d'aujourd'hui, quels sont les principaux défis dans la mise?
According to your experience and today's presentations, what do you think are the main challenges in implementing HUL recommendation in Africa?
Please go ahead. Okay, we have population pressure. Okay, so you see that population pressure is getting bigger. It means that a few people have marked the same challenge. It also says gestion, management. Somebody else maybe? Flooding and disaster. Okay. Okay. Another one, pression démographique, demographic pressure, changing political economy, conservation, etc. Okay, good. So now we're going to jump to the last one before we start the open debate. It would be, quelles sont les principales opportunités dans la mise en œuvre de la PUH en Afrique?
What are the main opportunities in the implementation of HUL in Africa?
Creative populations, that's a beautiful one. Livelihoods, community. Linkages, cultural reaches, very true. Diversity, community involvement grew bigger. That's nice. Okay, so I think we're going to stop the poll here and we give way to the open debate. I pass on the word to Jyoti and Mr. Varisu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alba. So, Mr. Varisu, back to you, please.
No, thank
and
you
then we
very
need
much.
to leave 10 minutes or at least 6 minutes for Ishan Lawson to wrap up.
Okay, meaning that we have about 15 minutes to interact, raise issues, questions, and provide comments. So the floor is to whom wish to take it. You listen to all the presentations, the poll as well. So the floor is yours, colleagues.
You can go to reactions and you can raise your hand.
You can also ask your question in the chat box. I can see Mohammed, please.
Merci beaucoup, Saïd, et merci beaucoup déjà, Jyoti.
Thank you so much, Said, and thank you so much, Jyoti, for organizing this key meeting that allows us to discuss the problems of African World Heritage cities. It's a great opportunity to underscore the 3 points, the 3 items that pop up around our discussions. These points are interesting and we have to discuss them again. First, urban transformation that was seen in Grand Bassam and in Jenne as well, the expansion of the city. This morning we had a meeting on Asian World Heritage cities, you know, how to integrate the new town with the ancient town fabric. We have to find a way to integrate both. One solution, if it's about accommodating the growing populations, one solution is the one they found in Jenne, creating a totally new neighborhood outside of the boundaries. But what I see in Jenne is also a challenge. We have to be smart and intelligent because if we create a new area, a new zone outside the old city, we have to find a way to balance out, you know, the construction or building criteria, because we cannot transfer the commercial criteria pertaining to old cities to the new city. It will create a conflict. We have to be smart and find a way. Yes, how to incorporate the old neighborhoods and the new neighborhoods, you know, so that they carry about the same flavor while not trying to replicate the ancient neighborhoods, because you're bound to have problems. You know, the urban planning regulations and the rest of it. You have to bear in mind you're building a new neighborhood. You're not rebuilding ancient old Jenne, but you have to make both complementary and harmonious. And the third point.
Good morning again.
One of the possibilities we have with the HUL is to make it possible for the population, the communities, and all the stakeholders to discuss together about the city issues. As we said for Grand Bassam, the problem is not only with the management plan, but it's how the management plan works with the spatial planning. What about the development, the growth of the city? That's what we see in Gene. The management plan concerns or relates to the old fabric of Gene. What about the new Gene neighborhood? Same thing in Grand Bassam, Côte d'Ivoire. Because we're talking about the development of a whole region, and we're not only talking about the historic city, which may have a great value, interesting value, but it's incorporated in a greater territory and in a whole region. And with the HUL recommendation, we can balance out all those strata at the historic and government's levels. So we have to continue talking about that in order to find the way to work with all the stakeholders to help them out. We'll be working with the management plan, but with the other plans as well, like urban planning. Thank you so much. Any other comment or question, intervention? It is true that the issue of taking into account various segments and various layers in the municipal management plan is really important. You have to check consistency, coherence. Now, I don't see any other hand raised. It doesn't have to be a question, it may be a comment, like what's the future of this program? And for us who were greatly involved in the implementation of that program, what about building on our experience and what are the future prospects for us as participants? I don't see any other person who wants to ask a question or make a comment. Saibu, yes, go ahead. I have a question about to the manager of Grand Bassam. What about those three neighborhoods? Are they integrated in terms of communication? You have the residential areas, the functional area, and with the civil servants, and the commercial area, residential. I mean, it's an old way of organizing a city. But so actually have 4 zones. How do you articulate them together? If we only talk about the administrative zone, are they working at nighttime, or only in the morning with the government civil servants, and in the afternoon maybe the administrative city is deserted? What about the residential area? Do people sleep there only, or do you also have hospitals and facilities and infrastructures working? I haven't visited Grand Bassam yet. So what about the articulation between those 4 zones? Yes, thank you for this question. And maybe you can build also on how to manage the interface with all the activities coming from the sea. And also, what about marine erosion, like in the island of St. Louis, Senegal? Tell us more. Mr. Jaku, you have the floor. Over to you, Mr. Jaku. Can you hear me? Yes, go ahead. You have a second device. You're working with 2 devices. Turn one off, please. Turn one of your 2 devices off, please. The noise is bad. One of your devices should be turned off, sir. Now the sound is cut off. Can you hear me now? Yes, very well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Varisu. I'd like to thank Mr. Mohammed as well for his intervention. Indeed, we are faced with the same difficulties as they have in Djenné. The idea is to preserve the ancient cities from the colonial times, but at the same time, you have a strong growth and development of the city. So how to match, how to accommodate the growth, the preservation of the old town and all the modern facilities and infrastructures of new towns. That's why we set up a local management committee, which is chaired by our mayor. It's the decision-making body. And also you have the building permit committee chaired by the prefect, so that all decisions made are binding. You have inspection rounds done with the support of the municipality to try and identify anything that is dysfunctioning on the site and to call back to order all the parties infringing on the regulations, particularly the building regulation. So all the building permits are examined, the requests are examined by this commission, and they issue their recommendations before issuing the building permit. So on paper it's easy, but in practice it's not so easy. Some people begin to understand, they've been sensitized, so if they have a building project, they refer immediately to the commission, but not everybody does it. So sometimes we have to suspend works that were already engaged to regularize the situation and apply for a proper building permit. Also, there is the threats of erosion in particular. Today, the Côte d'Ivoire government decided to implement the project to reopen the mouth of the river, the natural way of the river. It was naturally closed, the mouth of the river, and that's what led to major floods in 2019. So the state took hold of this project. It's still ongoing, and hopefully it will enable us to have fewer floods, definitely, because in Grand Bassam we have regular floods, even with small rainfalls. So together, hand in hand, with those parties and through that kind of meeting where we share information will help us to overcome those concerns. And to conclude, today with the cadaster, the city map, we try to harmonize all the actions of the management plan to coordinate all the actions and make them consistent. Compared with Djenné, in Djenné you have clay buildings mainly, but in Grand Bassam we also used concrete, so we have less difficulty. So you have the area, the dwelling area, the or residential area, and the other areas, they now make a whole, but we still have to educate the populations and raise awareness. All right. Well, unfortunately, we have to leave it at that. If there is no pressing question, I suggest that we hand over now to our rapporteur. And she will tell us the gist of what we said, hoping the discussions, of course, will go on. So I hand over to Jody, who will close the meeting. For me, anyway, it's been a huge pleasure. And I really thank you very much for participating our adaptation solution will mature, will be able to face all those challenges as heroic managers of the World Heritage Cities. Thank you. Ishan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear colleague, and thank you for inviting me to this meeting. I have learned a lot from my colleagues.
I think one thing that has come through in these interventions from the foresight is that we see that they represent a diversity of African cities, whether it is from Grand-Bassam and St. Louis, which are coastal sites, to Jenne, which is a historic interior delta site, and then Ciudad Velha also, which is a small island developing, which is located in a small island developing country. Together, these urban spaces are the theater for the intersections of tradition and modernity in a continuous flux, and they complement each other. In Ciudad Velha, we see the reality of small island developing countries, the lack of economic opportunities for small populations leading to the exodus of young people and their vulnerability to natural disasters. And also the fact that with the loss of the young, of a part of the population, the issue of continuity becomes a challenge, could become a challenge. However, we are reassured by the fact that the World Heritage Label presents opportunities both for their development and for their conservation, which would otherwise probably not have been the case, because the kind of development that we see in other historic centers that are not listed as World Heritage that do not happen at these sites. In Jenne, we are particularly marked by the reality of this city that is built in earth, and which, despite the aspirations of the community, we hear of the aspirations of the community itself to also use a different material. And so the challenge becomes, how do we take this historic city that is built in this material into the 21st century while meeting also the aspirations of the people? We're talking about architectures of an architectural style that was built for a different way of living. And as people aspire to new things, they are saying we need larger windows, we want electricity, we want pipe-borne water in the residences. So how do we meet these challenges? However, strikingly, we're also encouraged by the reality of Jenne, which, located as it is in the intersection between northern and southern Mali, is also a place of refuge for those who are running away from the conflict in the north of the city, of the country. So that is something that is an interesting development, but at the same time, the growing population from internally displaced populations also puts pressure on the resources of this historic city. In all, whether it is Ciudad Velha or whether it is Jenne, we find that these World Heritage Cities hold strong potential to positively contribute to the livelihood and the quality of life of the communities that live in them. So how do we now begin to say, I mean, one of the big challenges we would have is we have these local communities, and because they are urban centers, what we call local is actually, in a large sense, is the coming together of people from different diverse cultures. And in that urban space, we are also seeing the emergence of new urban cultures and new traditions. And so this is, the historic cities in Africa present great opportunity to see and also to document how urban life can evolve or is evolving within the African context. The four of them have also give us, present to us the great opportunities that they hold for having a positive socioeconomic impact, whether for the local communities that live in there or for the wider national economy. We are, however, challenged by the fact that we
and the reality of the day we are living in also shows this. The fact that economic opportunity within historic centers, these as represented by these four cities, must go beyond tourism as a primary driver of economic development. And so these, we need to be able to also lend to the community living in this place the opportunity for new expression and new economic development that are totally out of, that are ingrown, that come out of their own experiences and that do not put in jeopardy the conservation and the historic attributes of the site. Grant Bassam has presented for us some of the things that we hope that as we move forward with the historical urban landscape approach, we hope that will take root across the historic sites in Africa. That is the model of participatory management with the local community. This raises the question, as these cities begin to grow and expand beyond the boundaries for which they were inscribed, how do we ensure a seamlessness between the center, the historic center, and the urban peripheries that are developing around them in a way that gives credence to one of the central points of the HUL, which is that continuity in time. So how do we ensure that those urban peripheries are seamless, not just about the buffer zone, but that seamlessness of history is carried across. As people come in from rural centers into these urban centers in search of new economic opportunities, they will bring in new cultures. And so the urban center will become that point of the cooking, as it were. Finally, I would like to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Finally, sorry. Finally, I just want to point to challenges such as the ones in Saint Louis, where human intervention at these sites are also putting some of the sites in danger, like the Langue de Barbarie. What has happened at the Langue de Barbarie over the years, while they are well-intentioned, I think it calls us to the need to carry out more studies to ensure that these sites are effectively protected against the vagaries of changing weather conditions. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Giving the floor back to the Deputy Director of the World Heritage Center, when thanking all of you for your attendance and your great involvement and commitment for this. Thank you very much. Jyoti, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Soibu. This was a very difficult work you had today because of the technical difficulties where we had to pack so many presentations into the limited time. But many, many thanks to the excellent presentations. It really was very rich and wonderful to get these insights into the working of these cities and the work that you have been carrying out. This was incredibly valuable. Thank you very much, Soibu, and many, many thanks, Ishan Lasson, for those very insightful comments that you managed to gather in this very short time. As you saw, there's also a mirror board that we have developed with some of the points that have been raised. So we're adding to it as we go forward. And this is something that we hope to share with you. And we want to keep you with us. We hope that you will stay with us and continue to the next session that will start at 3:30 today. We have 3 more sessions of preparatory technical meetings on the 21st. And then the launch of the HUL call for action on 23rd. And on 24th, we bring the rapporteurs of all of these different technical sessions to the 24th session on the 24th, where we synthesize and we have 2 roundtables for the synthesis of these points. So we very much look forward to having everybody with us, and thank you very much. All right, so we will let everybody go at this point, and many thanks also to the technical support and to the team who has been working very hard on this. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Merci, bye-bye.
Actually, I just realized we have not taken a group photo. If people are still here, we would like to take a quick group photo.
J'ai oublié.
People have disconnected. If you haven't disconnected, can we take a quick group photo? Thank you very much. Let's do, we need to open our cameras for a second.
Recording stopped.
Hello, Martin.
Yes.
I was receiving this message telling me the host wants you to unmute. Is there anything you wanted to tell me?
Not really, no.
Okay, so I guess I will just hang up.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, see you later.
See you in the third meeting.
Thanks, everyone. I think we
Yes.
can close the session now. Thank you.
Yes. Thank
We
you.
hope to see you in the next session. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Merci beaucoup à tous.
Merci.